Welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks so much for joining with us. Well, the race is too close to call. The top candidates in the Republican primary for the Pennsylvania Senate are separated by just a few thousand votes. Dr. Oz and David McCormick are neck and neck.
The race has captured national attention because Pennsylvania is a battleground state. The results could tip the balance in the U.S. Senate in November. Charlene Aaron has the details.
As polls closed, Dr. Mehmet Oz, the celebrity heart surgeon endorsed by former President Donald Trump, was neck and neck with former hedge fund manager David McCormick in a race too close to call.
So, we're not going to have a result tonight. When all the votes are tallied, I am confident we will win.
McCormick sounded confident about his slim lead.
We can see victory ahead, and it's all because of you.
The winner will face off against John Fetterman. The state's lieutenant governor won the Democratic nomination for Senate, despite undergoing a heart procedure following a stroke last week. The Pennsylvania primary had been closely watched around the country. The Republican field was a very tight three-person race between Oz, McCormick, and media commentator Kathy Barnett. Oz and McCormick spent big, but Barnett was surging in the polls heading into primary day.
It was Barnett. It was Barnett. I don't want to vote for Oz.
Kathy Barnett.
Why?
Because I liked everything she said. She's pro-choice, pro-life. Everything she was saying too.
But Barnett faced criticism for old tweets, appearing to bash Muslims and pictures of her walking near members of the Proud Boys on January 6th. All three GOP candidates courted Trump voters, but Oz got the coveted endorsement. He thanked the former president after polls closed.
President Trump, after he endorsed me, continued to lead into this race in Pennsylvania. And God bless you, sir, for putting so much effort into this race.
Other Trump-backed candidates also won. Doug Mastriano won the Republican nomination for governor of Pennsylvania. And in North Carolina, Representative Ted Budd rode to victory in the Republican Senate primary. But the Trump-backed candidate in North Carolina's House primary, Madison Cawthorn, conceded to State Senator Chuck Edwards amidst a series of scandals. As we move toward the midterm elections in November, a new CNN poll revealed President Biden with a 40% approval rating. The same poll shows 65% of Americans are concerned about how things are going in the U.S., with 21% saying they are scared. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, our chief political analyst, David Brody, is joining us now. So, David, any surprises from yesterday?
No, I don't think so overall. Where do we even begin? I think we're seeing the power of Trump. Once again, 23-2 last night, but let's dissect those two. First of all, those two, Madison Cawthorn and Janice McGeeran out in Idaho, both lost, but both were scandal-plagued. So that wasn't so much about Trump, more about the candidates themselves. The fact that Trump even backed them it was questionable to begin with. But let's look at what happened in Pennsylvania. I mean, Doug Mastriano is going to be the Republican nominee for governor in that state. He called for the 2020 election to be overturned in Pennsylvania. You've got Ted Budd in North Carolina is going to be the United States Senate candidate for Republicans. He, too, had major concerns about the 2020 election, and Donald Trump backed both of them, and they both won. That's a big victory for Trump. It's a big victory for MAGA. And then, of course, you have Dr. Oz. And let's be honest, Gordon, here. The fact that Dr. Oz is even in a recount at this point is a victory for Trump, because Dr. Oz's poll numbers went up by about 7-8 points since Trump endorsed him. McCormick would have won this race going away if it wasn't for Trump's endorsement. So the fact that Oz is even in the game is once again another victory for Trump.
He's not just in the game. He's right now he's ahead. So he could be the nominee. Here's one of the criticisms of Trump I'm reading, and that is his endorsement. He's sort of king of the Republican Party, but he's not really building the Republican Party. What do you think about that?
I think there's legitimacy to that, for sure. And I also think it also depends on some of the endorsements that he's made. I mean, the Kathy Barnett was a good example. I mean, if Kathy Barnett had Trump's endorsement in Pennsylvania, she probably would have won the race in Pennsylvania. I mean, she finished a strong third without Trump's endorsement, and Trump was working against her. But I think there's some legitimacy to that, for sure.
Let's talk about Kathy Barnett. Do you think she's got a future? Is she going to run again? She certainly came in above anybody's expectation. Where does she go from here?
Yeah, I think she has a future for sure. And look, it was really somewhat disheartening to see a lot of Republicans, mainstream Republicans, go after her. Sean Hannity went after her quite a bit. And it was really unfortunate for Kathy Barnett. I think she peaked just a little too early. They had quite a bit of ammunition to kind of come with her at, and she had to kind of fend that off at the last moment. Let's remember, though, Kathy Barnett spent about $300,000. I think it was that. It might have been less. $300,000 in this race compared to $17 million for Oz and $27 million for McCormick. 300,000 people and $300,000. And she only had 3 people working on her staff. So it was kind of a David and Goliath situation. So she's on the map for sure. And by the way, let me just say on the McCormick-Oz race, we'll see how it all plays out. It's going to go to a recount. But on the mail-in ballots, McCormick most likely will have an advantage, and that's the belief at this point why McCormick could indeed pull it out in the end, but we'll see.
Well, let's go back to the Pennsylvania Senate race. Let's talk about the Democrat, John Fetterman. Here's somebody who went to Harvard graduate school, but at the same time, he's 6'8", former football player, he's got tattoos, and he's looking like he was born and raised in West Pennsylvania. So could he win that state? And if so, what would that mean for Republicans in November?
Yeah, he definitely could win the state, for sure. He'll have to do well in the Philly suburbs and in inner-city Philadelphia. There'll be some issues as it relates to him and the African-American vote in Philadelphia. You know, he didn't do as well last night with the African-American vote as Democrats wanted him to do. Definitely the Fetterman came wanted him to do. And there's some reasons for that. I mean, I don't want to get back into it, but he was mayor in a small town in Pittsburgh. And at one point, he pulled over a jogger who was black with a handgun. And so there's a controversy there. So he may have some issues within the African-American community, and he'll need them in the general election to run up the numbers in the Philadelphia inner city areas, as well as Pittsburgh, of course. So, I mean, I think there's that. But you're right, 6'8", tattoos. He comes to these press conferences at times as the lieutenant governor with baggy shorts and hoodies. I mean, this guy is fully blue collar, kind of middle class. He's got the kind of the Trump vibe in a way as it relates to just doesn't look like your typical politician. So he's going to be formidable for sure. At this point, it would typically be a toss-up between him and Oz in Pennsylvania in the fall. And if it's McCormick and Fetterman right now, it looks like Fetterman would have a slight lead on McCormick. But either way, it would be a very tight race.
How are you handicapping the midterms in general? Is this still a red wave, or are things moving a little bit more to the Democrats?
No, I think it's a red wave, Gordon. Here's the problem. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. You know, the Democrats have been trying to say, well, look, we're going to do more on whether it be COVID or the border. Actually, they're not really doing much on the border, but inflation and the economy. I hate to say this and break the news to Democrats. It just does not matter. And you say, well, why doesn't it matter? Well, the reason is that there have been too many blunders, too many polls, poll after poll showing, indeed, that there is a mistrust, believe it or not, of the Biden administration when it comes to handling certain issues, whether it be the economy, Afghanistan, immigration. We can go down the line. It's just become a narrative. And we know that in politics, once the narrative is set, it is very hard to get out of that narrative. I just think of Barack Obama in 2008 for a moment. Why did he come and become president of the United States? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but he had a hope and change narrative, and he defined himself that way, and it worked wonders. Donald Trump defined himself as the billionaire who who could talk like a cab driver guy, and he had a narrative. But then Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, what was their narrative? Well, it was Lion Ted and Little Marco, and it's all about narratives in politics. And the narrative for the Democrats right now is not good. I don't see that changing at all for the midterms in 2022.
All right. David, thanks for the insight. Thanks for joining us. Well, let's turn to the border. The Border Patrol is now bracing for a new surge of illegal crossings at the southern border. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas toured Texas's Rio Grande Valley Tuesday as critics charge the Biden administration is about to make the crisis worse. CBN's Tara Mergener reports.
April was a historic high with 234,000 migrant encounters along the southern border, the most in agency history, and a 114% increase over this time last year. DHS Secretary Mayorkas is visiting the border as the administration prepares for a new surge. Last month, nearly 97,000 illegal crossers were expelled under Title 42, a Trump-era pandemic policy that President Biden hopes to end next week. A federal judge has temporarily blocked the administration's effort, but is expected to issue a ruling in the coming days. A number of states are suing, arguing the administration isn't following proper procedure in ending the policy, and that Border Patrol will be overrun without it.
That does not mean that the border is open beginning on May 23rd. We continue to enforce the laws of this country, the preparation of which began in September of last year. We knew very well that the CDC's Title 42 authority would not be around forever.
However, Mayorkas has admitted that ending Title 42 would only make the situation on the border worse. The health order has been issued more than 1.8 million times to keep migrants from entering this country.
Title 42 is a common sense policy put in place by the Trump administration to control the spread of COVID. They're going to create an entirely different set of rules for illegal immigrants.
As they prepare for a surge, Mayorkas says the U.S. is ramping up personnel, efficiency, and enforcement. Border Patrol has been pleading for more manpower and technology. Agents are especially concerned because illegal traffic has now shifted from primarily family units to single adults, most who are being sent via buses and planes to cities across the U.S. and will likely never face a judge. Meanwhile, new polling shows 58% of Americans disapprove of the way Biden is handling the border crisis. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Tara. Well, CBN News will air a special program on the problems facing the southern border. You can watch Biden's border on May 23rd and 25th on the CBN News Channel. Just download the CBN News app or the CBN Family app to watch. Well, turning overseas to the war in Ukraine, nearly 1,000 Ukrainian troops left the steel plant in Mariupol Wednesday, all but ending the battle for the strategic port. The fighters had been holed up in the massive steelworks for weeks under relentless bombardment from Russia. Ukraine's government ordered the remaining soldiers to save their lives, declaring their mission to tie up Russian forces complete. Ukraine is not calling it a surrender and is hoping to arrange a prisoner swap. Russia, though, says it will try some of the soldiers from Ukraine with war crimes. Well, among the millions of refugees who fled Ukraine are thousands of Jews seeking a new life in Israel. CBN Israel partnered with the Jewish Agency to help many of these refugees resettle in the Jewish state. CBN's Ashley Key was there to greet some of the new arrivals.
Millions of lives have been changed forever. Families have been ripped apart, homes have been destroyed, and a country once rich in beauty and peace lies in ruins. As the war in Ukraine rages on, CBN was able to partner with the Jewish Agency in Israel, supporting thousands of Ukrainian Jewish refugees fleeing their country. I had the privilege of experiencing this life-changing work firsthand.
I'm standing on the tarmac at the Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, Israel. And as you see, right behind me is a flight fully funded by CBN Israel, helping Jewish Ukrainians seek refuge from the ongoing war in their homeland.
They lost everything. And so many of the people that came here today, I don't know if you noticed all the women with babies and no fathers. The fathers had to stay behind. They're protecting their country.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Despite the ongoing restlessness and an uncertain future for so many, CBN, with the help of the Jewish Agency, is able to provide emergency transportation, shelter, and evacuation.
People are tired, but they have hope. They have joy. We have rescued over 12,000 people, helping them cross the border. And we are here to help and give those children and those families a new start in Israel, and hoping and praying, God willing, that their fathers will soon join them.
It smells good. The air is pretty.
What is your hope for Israel?
To have an easy and fast adaptation, to find my way in this country and learn the language.
CBN Israel will continue to support the thousands of Ukrainian Jewish refugees desperately seeking a better life for themselves and their families.
And this would not be possible without our CBN partners. So right now, we want to take this time in this moment to say thank you. Thank you for your heart for Israel. Thank you for your compassion. And thank you for taking action and helping the Ukrainian people in need.
Great reporting. Gordon, back to you.
And that thank you goes all the way from Tel Aviv to your home. If you're a member of the 700 Club, you're part of that relief effort. You're part of that rescue flight. You're also part of all that we're doing in Ukraine through the Orphans Promise Centers, the Operation Blessing Centers. It's amazing what is happening because people like you cared enough to give, to say, yes, let's be a part of it. Let's help the people in need. If you're not a member, I encourage you to join us. All you have to do is go to the phone and call us, 1-800-700-7000. And thank you for that. Thank you for being a part and saying, yes, let's help people in need.